The word of the day is bond issue. Okay, who knows what a bond issue is?
A bond issue? You mean like a sexy, hirsute British secret agent?
Nope.
It's from the ancient Latin, bondis issuus, meaning to procrastinate payment in order to save one's ass.
Okay, we're getting closer. Anyone else?
Look, fella, nobody knows what a bond issue is. That's why politicians use the term.
Okay, then I'll make sure it's clear. Basically, a bond issue is just an IOU from the state of California to public investors. These investors lend the money to California, and we pay them back. Plus interest, of course.
Is that all?
Excuse me, I wasn't finished. Before the current California budget crisis, there were usually just two forms of bond issues used in California. The first is called a general obligation bond. It pays for a specific large project that's too costly to pay for all at once, like a park or a prison.
What about Prop 55 on the March 2nd ballot? Is that a GO bond?
It sure is. Prop 55 is meant to pay for building new schools. The second commonly used bond is a revenue bond. These do not need voter approval because revenue bonds pay for things that earn money. Things like toll bridges and power facilities.
Now for a bond of a completely different color.
When California's gargantuan budget crisis began 2 years ago, the state started to use something called a budget-related bond. We had never used these before, for a good reason. One of these is called a deficit financing bond. This is like the $15 billion bond Governor Schwarzenegger and the legislature has put on the March 2nd ballot.
I call it the Economic Recovery Bond Act, which will let the lenders to California and the banks and the people like that get a fair share of the money we owe them.
This will be the largest bond issue by a state in U.S. history. Deficit financing bonds are like paying credit card debt with another credit card.
I made a bargain like that once with Satan.
That's why many economists and politicians think of deficit financing bonds only as a last resort.
Frankly, I don't care what kind of bond it is, just so I don't have to pay more taxes.
Wait, there's more.
Huh?
We already owe several billion on other bond issues we previously floated, not to mention several short-term loans that need to be paid off by June. These, along with our loss of revenue and inability to balance our budget, has given us a very precarious credit rating. This, in turn, could raise the interest on any more money we borrow. So conceivably, if the $15 billion bond issue passes, our future deficit could be worse than it is today. And that could eventually mean an even bigger tax hike and deeper cuts to services. However, if we don't pass the bond issue, well, that could be even more worse. Worser. Well, it ain't good. Because if we don't pass the bond issue, we may have to default on the short-term notes coming up in June, which would give the lenders first claim on any revenues, which would decimate our credit rating, hiking taxes higher and cutting services so deep, lives would be threatened.
So what you're saying is, we're f***ed if we do and we're f***ed if we don't.
That about sums it up. Of course, the governor could just raise taxes now. That's what I thought. And that's the story of today's word of the day, bond issue. See you later. Okay, kids, who knows when all this crazy recall business started? Sally?
Well, back in April, I think.
Sorry, Sally. Think back to when a huge corporation held a virtual monopoly on one of California's fundamental resources.
He means those Enron bastards.
No. A different corporation. Maybe it's time for a little history lesson. Back at the end of the 19th century, there was a company called Southern Pacific Railroad. It controlled nearly all interstate transportation. Nothing moved without Southern Pacific. The problem was, the railroad abused its power. It would raise rates without warning, and often blocked competition and protest, sometimes violently. And there was little Californians could do since Southern Pacific controlled a large number of legislators and judges. The situation seemed hopeless. Until a man named Hiram Johnson, part of the progressive movement that wanted to give citizens more control over their government. Hiram ran for governor, pushing some newfangled ideas called initiative, referendum, and recall. The progressives knew Southern Pacific was the perfect villain and pitched recall and the other reforms as the way to get big business, specifically Southern Pacific, out of government. Many newspapers thought the progressive reforms were crazy, especially those papers connected to Southern Pacific. But Hiram had an answer for those who oppose recall.
The opponents of recall, however they may phrase their opposition, in reality believe the people cannot be trusted.
In 1910, Hiram won in a landslide. And in 1911, the state constitution was amended to include initiative, referendum, and recall.
Wait a minute. I still want to know why we can recall a governor who hasn't committed a crime.
Good question. Well, the proponents of recall believed the people should be treated like bosses and the elected officials like employees. Thus, the people should have the right to fire a worker with whom they are dissatisfied, even if he is the governor. Since then, half of all governors since 1911 have been targeted with recall efforts. That includes Ronald Reagan with 3 efforts, Pete Wilson with 4, Jerry Brown with 5. But the winner of the most recall efforts is George Deukmejian with 9 recall efforts.
Whoopee! Whoopee! I win! I win!
Duke, buddy, that's not a good thing. Oh, never mind.
However, none of these even came close to getting enough signatures. Only the effort against Gray Davis has made the ballot. What would Hiram think about today's recall effort?
Well, no comment.
One thing is certain, Hiram never predicted paying signature gatherers, and he certainly never predicted the advancement in technology or the power of media and celebrity. What would Hiram think about today's recall effort?
While I do not by any means believe the initiative, the referendum, and the recall are the panacea for all our political ills, yet they do place in the hands of the people the means by which they may protect themselves.
And that's the history of recall in California. Thanks, Hiram.
My pleasure.